Sir, I'm going to need you to switch to seat 32B. We have a family that must be seated together, and your current seat is the only one in this section that allows that, the flight attendant said, her expression professional yet unwavering. Sewe. Sergeant Thomas Ashton, 78, a veteran with a noticeable limp, glanced up from his aisle seat in the comfort section of economy, one he'd reserved months ago specifically for the added legroom on this long flight. "But this is the seat assigned to me," he replied softly. "I chose it because of a service-connected knee injury." The flight attendant's expression remained unchanged. "I understand, sir, but we have to give priority to families. It's just for this trip." 9 minutes later, as Sergeant Ashton reluctantly squeezed into a cramped middle seat near the back, the cockpit door swung open. The captain stepped out, scanned the cabin, and walked directly to him, pausing beside his row and delivering a formal salute. "If you believe honoring service should never take a backseat to convenience, comment honor our vets below." Sergeant Thomas "Tom" Ashton, USMC, retired, wore the roadmap of his life in the weathered lines of his face and the quiet limp in his left leg, a lasting mark from a battle in a far-off land many can't pronounce. At 78, he was lean, with neatly combed silver hair and eyes that, though dimmed by age, still carried the sharp perception earned through years of training. He was flying from his small home in Arizona to Boston for his granddaughter's college graduation, a journey he had anticipated with joy. Though long flights were difficult, Tom had carefully booked his seat months in advance to reduce strain on his knee, which had never fully healed. Seat 15. C. Aisle. Economy comfort on Flight 308. The few inches of additional space and the ability to stretch weren't luxuries, they were necessities. He'd used a portion of his pension savings to secure that specific seat, wanting to arrive in decent shape for his granddaughter's big day. He'd boarded during his assigned group, stored his modest carry-on, and settled into 15C. Grateful for the extra room, he looked forward to reading a book during the flight. The cabin buzzed with typical pre-takeoff activity as passengers found their seats and crammed bags overhead. Tom was casually observing when a flight attendant, Susan, late 30s, uniform pristine, eyes alert, stepped up to his row. "Pardon me, sir," she said directly, her tone polite but rushed. "There's a family, a mom and two small kids, who were split up due to our system. Your seat and the two beside it are the only trio available in this section." Tom blinked. "My seat? I picked and paid for 15C months ago because of a medical condition." Susan's polite smile turned a notch tighter. "I understand, and we truly appreciate your flexibility. Sometimes these adjustments are necessary to seat families together." "I understand the need for families," Tom replied evenly, "but I have medical reasons for needing this type of seat. Is there another aisle seat in this section, or perhaps an upgrade, to compensate?" Susan tapped her tablet swiftly. "Unfortunately, all other aisle seats in economy comfort are filled and first class is at full capacity. The only seat available now is 32B. Tom knew that seat, a middle spot, back in standard economy, possibly beside the lavatories, the last place he wanted to sit. "32B?" he said, incredulous. "That'll be brutal on my knee for 5 hours." "Sir," Susan said, now with a slight edge, as nearby passengers began tuning in, "I need your cooperation. The family's waiting, and we must close the cabin doors. It's just for this one flight. We'll offer a complimentary drink voucher for your trouble." A drink voucher, for giving up the one seat he carefully chose and paid for to manage constant pain, now traded for hours of agony in a middle seat. That offer feels dismissive. "This isn't about a drink," Tom said quietly, but with steel in his tone. "It's about a medically required seat I confirmed and paid for. Are you telling me your policy forces me to worsen a service-related injury because of an airline error?" Nearby passengers were now clearly listening. The mom with her two children stood just behind, visibly uncomfortable. Susan's face flushed under Tom's gaze and the crowd's attention. "Sir, I'm simply following airline procedure and trying to seat everyone as best we can. Refusing to move could delay our departure." The veiled warning lingered in the air. Tom recognized the move: peer pressure, subtle guilt, painting him as the problem. He'd seen this method in other forms before. He looked at the tired mother, the squirming kids. He didn't want to cause a disruption, didn't want to hold up the flight, didn't want the family to suffer for the airline's mistake, even though the mistake wasn't his. His chest rose with a deep sigh, a sense of tired acceptance flooding over him. Tom slowly unclipped his seatbelt. "All right," he said, his tone scarcely above a whisper. "I'll move, but I want this on record. My name is Thomas Ashton Sargent, USMC, retired. This isn't right." He lifted his small carry-on and began the slow, painful effort of easing himself out of the aisle seat, his knee already throbbing. Susan offered a tight, relieved nod. "Thank you for understanding, sir. 32B middle." She then turned her attention to guide the grateful family into Tom's now empty row. Her attention already shifted. Tom's sacrifice already just another issue checked off her list. Tom moved slowly down the jammed aisle, grimacing at every step as he maneuvered around bags and outstretched limbs. He eventually reached 32B, a cramped middle spot between a large man already spilling into both armrests and a young woman absorbed in her phone. He slid in, his knee instantly flaring in pain from the tight space. The flight crew member who had reassigned him offered no further help, no apology. What Tom felt was the same old mix of irritation, sadness, and powerlessness. It wasn't just the pain. It was the casual disregard, the lack of dignity, the sense that he was a burden. He shut his eyes, trying to push through the pulsing ache in his leg, the flight not even taxiing yet. As he sat quietly, a passenger in the row in front, a suited businessman who had heard the whole scene earlier, quietly pulled out his phone. He was a diamond-tier flyer with a direct line to customer relations. He quickly composed a message. "Flight 308, Gate C12. Elderly Marine vet SGT Thomas Ashton with knee injury pushed from aisle seat 15C, economy comfort, into cramped 32B middle to fit a family." Attendant Susan ignored his medical needs. "Mishandled badly. Passenger is clearly upset. Recommend urgent cockpit notice if possible." He pressed send, hoping someone on the other end would care more than the ground staff. He didn't know if it would make a difference, but he had to try. The doors sealed shut. The safety message played. The aircraft rolled back from the terminal. Tom braced for a long, grueling journey. His granddaughter's graduation already feeling distant. 7 minutes ticked by, then 8. The jet was taxiing to the runway. Exactly 9 minutes after the cabin was locked, as the plane waited for takeoff clearance, the cockpit door opened. That was rare. Those doors almost never opened post-pushback unless there was an issue. Out stepped the captain, a man around his late 50s with a commanding presence, dressed sharp, gold stripes on his shoulders. He didn't speak right away. He scanned the rows with a serious look. He spoke briefly with the senior crew member, not Susan, but another attendant who quietly pointed toward the rear cabin. The captain then walked down the aisle, eyes moving over the passengers. He stopped beside row 32. His eyes found Tom wedged awkwardly in the narrow seat. He studied Tom's expression, the discomfort, the quiet endurance. The captain paused, his face unreadable for a second. Then it changed recognition, respect. He stood squarely in front of Tom. Then, in full view of startled passengers near the back, Captain David Miller himself, once an Air Force pilot, straightened and gave a sharp, formal salute. "Sergeant Thomas Ashton, The captain's voice was strong, cutting easily through the quiet engine hum. Sir, on behalf of Transcontinental Airlines and as a fellow serviceman, please accept my sincere apology for the completely unacceptable way your seating was managed. Tom looked up, astonished. Other passengers leaned and whispered. The man next to Tom stopped crowding the armrest. Captain, Tom started. Sergeant Ashton, Captain Miller continued, steady and respectful. I was just informed of what happened via a report sent from operations by a concerned traveler and verified through our veteran support alert. Removing you from your required pre-assigned seat was a serious lapse in judgment and not in line with our promise to those who served. He looked around. Is there a Miss Susan, a flight attendant on this crew? Susan, who had been near the rear, stepped forward, face pale and uneasy. The captain fixed his gaze on her, cold as steel. Miss Susan, you will now personally escort Sergeant Ashton to seat 1A in first class. My co-pilot's jump seat is definitely more bearable than 32B. If first class is unavailable, you will request a volunteer. Should no one step forward, you will inform the passenger in 1A that the pilot of this aircraft needs that seat for a Medal of Honor candidate who was severely mishandled by this airline. Clear? While Tom wasn't actually an MOH nominee in this account, the captain's bold, slightly exaggerated claim was intentional for maximum effect. Susan nodded silently, her complexion pale. The captain then looked back at Tom, his expression once again gentle. Sergeant Ashton, let us set this right. You deserve far more than a simple aisle spot. He helped Tom, who was still a bit stunned, out of the cramped middle seat. Onlookers watched quietly, many now seeing Tom with fresh respect and growing awareness. The businessman who had fired off the message gave a subtle thumbs up. As Tom, aided by a now extremely deferential and shaken Susan, made his way to the front of the plane, Captain Miller spoke to the full cabin over the PA, his tone calm yet commanding. Folks, this is your captain. We'll be slightly delayed this morning before takeoff. At Transcontinental Airlines, we are committed to honoring and respecting all customers, especially those who have worn our country's uniform with pride. Today, that promise fell short for one of those individuals, a decorated Marine veteran. That lapse is being corrected. We thank you for your patience while we make sure every hero is treated with the dignity owed. We'll be airborne shortly. A light round of applause rippled through the cabin. In first class, the occupant of 1A, having caught some of the exchange and the captain's statement, promptly and gladly gave up his seat before Susan even needed to approach. Tom got comfortable in the roomy first-class chair, finally able to extend his leg. The head flight attendant brought him a pre-departure drink and expressed a sincere apology. Captain Miller stopped by one last time before heading back to the cockpit. Once again, Sergeant, my sincerest regrets. Have a good flight, and thank you for serving. Tom, now finally at ease, looked at the captain. Appreciate it, Captain, for what you did, and for also not forgetting. The flight to Boston was smooth and relaxing. Flight attendant Susan was notably absent from first class for the rest of the journey. Upon landing, Tom was greeted at the gate by a Transcontinental Airlines Special Assistance rep who delivered more apologies, a full reimbursement for his original seat, and a travel voucher for future first-class service for both him and his granddaughter. The airline also promptly opened an internal review of its family seating and veteran support guidelines. Tom arrived at his granddaughter's graduation well-rested and in high spirits, his belief in basic human kindness and the shared bond of military service quietly renewed. He knew that systems may break and people can be careless, but he also understood that now and then, it only takes one person making a call and one captain taking a stand to make sure that honor gets the recognition it deserves, even at 30,000 feet. Subscribe to this channel if you believe real leaders take action and that our veterans should always receive the respect they've earned. Jahrhunderts.